Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel with Lawhorn's Living Tiny. Today I'm by myself. Well, technically by myself. The kids are in the tub and husband's at work. So I'm by myself recording today. We're going to talk about something that kind of doesn't have much to do with my husband or my kids. They were guest stars in this story. But we're going to talk all things breastfeeding. Alright. So anyways, if you are on this video, I assume either you're just an awesome subscriber, so thank you for your support. If you have not already hit that subscribe button, go ahead and click down below. Turn on your post notifications. Comment if you like the video. If you have any questions that I can follow up with, I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay, so for those of you who are here because you want to know some good breastfeeding tips. Well, this isn't about breastfeeding in a tiny house because I only did that for a few months, but it's about breastfeeding in general. So if you're curious about breastfeeding, I implore you to first begin to research. Research how you should breastfeed, different ways you can do that. Are you going to pump? Are you going to be exclusive breastfeeder? Are you going to let other people feed your baby? Or how's your husband going to participate in that? Right? You want to research all these things. Mastitis, which is an infection. How do you get that and how do you get rid of it? What questions should you ask your doctor? Planning to see a lactation consultant. These are all things that you should definitely research. Okay, it is great to get opinions from other moms, but nothing is better than your own opinion because at the end of the day, it's your baby. You're going to make those decisions at the end of the day. I'm just going to tell you what I think, things that can help you, and what I did or did not do. Okay, so after you've researched, which I did with my first child, I was only 22 years old when I found out that I was pregnant. Sorry, my back is killing me. I was 22 years old when I found out that I was pregnant, and I was like, okay, cool. So at the time I was working at a local daycare in Houston, and some of my students or the kids at the daycare were actually my professor's kids. And one thing that I noticed about all these professors, they all breastfed. I don't know one of the professors who actually gave their kids formula. And so I said, that's interesting. And as I continued to get to know them and find out about them, I just found out that they made a more educated choice. They gave me their opinions, their facts, what they thought about it. So, of course, naturally, I went home and started doing my own research. Now, my mother never breastfed. She's a mother of 5. She tried, but she just couldn't get her breasts to let down any milk. She tried pumping. The pumps were empty. So she thought we were starving, and she did what any mother would do. Fed is best. She fed us formula, and I'm grateful for that. I have no qualms about that. I'm smart, I'm fine, and I'm healthy. So if you're still considering breastfeeding versus formula, let the naysayers go. This is just how you can breastfeed effectively and good tips for that. Okay, so she tried these things, and at this time, I don't believe lactation consultants were mandated to be at every hospital or even something that they had, because my mother grew up in the generation where formula is better, right? So you weren't taught to breastfeed. And now that breastfeeding is having a comeback, if you will, I wanted to know about it. So as I dived into the research, one thing that I can tell you from my research, and you should see this when you research it too, breastfeeding has many pros that formula just can't match, right? Number one, if you exclusively breastfeed your baby, not only does your baby get to know you and bond with you much quicker and that attachment happens, you're less likely to go through major postpartum depression, right? And if you've had postpartum or you know anybody, it's not great at all. 2, your baby also gets great nutrients from mom. So one thing that breastfeeding does, exclusively breastfeeding does, that formula cannot replicate, is that your milk changes composition to give your baby its needs. For example, if your baby is a little vitamin K deficient or vitamin D deficient or vitamin C, A, B, E, elemento P, right? Your body is going to do what it needs to do to give your baby those vitamins. It also changes throughout the day. So in the morning time, your milk is lighter, less fatty, so that the baby can wake up and get active. And at nighttime, it's full of fat, so maybe you can catch an extra 10 minutes of sleep. Yeah, right. So these are just things that the milk does to try to help you. I co-slept with all my kids. It was easier for breastfeeding, but we're not going to get into that today. That's a decision for you to make. So breastfeeding is great and it's quintessential. I believe that every mother should at least try. If you try and it's not for you, okay, make a decision from there. But as a mother, we all want to do what's best for our baby. So why not try the best thing out there? Another thing, after you get all your research together and you decide, And I say you because it's going to be you doing this 90% of the time, so you should really consider all these things yourself. Then it's time to talk to your partner. See how they feel. Do they want to participate in feedings, or are they perfectly fine with you doing it all by yourself? Now, I'm not saying they're the decision maker. I don't know how your relationship works, but you should consider these things. There are other ways to bond with the baby than just feedings. So if your partner is like, no, I don't want you to exclusively breastfeed because I want to be able to feed my kid too, yes, you can accommodate that by pumping, or you can maybe present all the nice ways that they can bond with the baby. Skin to skin, bath time, changing diapers, playing with baby, talking to baby. There's a multitude of ways. It's not just feeding, okay? That's one of the smaller ways to bond with baby, even though it's big for us. After you've talked with your partner, then maybe talk about the harder things. How do you feel about breastfeeding in public? So you should probably generate your own opinion about this first, because men sometimes, or whatever your partner is, may think that, no, I don't want anybody looking at my wife or my girlfriend or my fiance. But then just remind them, it has nothing to do with sexuality. I know that boobs are oftentimes sexualized, but in this case, it's for nurture, not for nature, okay? So make sure you talk to them. Do you want to be covered? Maybe you buy a cover for yourself. Or maybe you decide, I'm just going to keep a blanket with me. Or you buy breastfeeding clothes. Clothes that easily open up so nobody can see you, but you can comfortably breastfeed your baby without hassling with any blankets. Or maybe you just don't care. I was one of those moms. Kinda. So, as I'm pretty conservative, or I can be kind of modest sometimes, I thought I would cover up. But one day, we were at a wing restaurant with my firstborn. It's me and my husband. First outing after a couple of weeks. And we decided to take the baby with us. So we're eating, and the baby starts crying. And then it hits me. I don't have any bottles or any pump milk with me. My husband wasn't comfortable with it. So even though it could have been just easy to feed my child, he wanted me covered up. He thought that people would look at me and sexualize me feeding my kid. So he's wrestling with this blanket, and my kid is getting hungrier and hungrier. And I say my kid, it's our kid. But my kid is getting hungrier and hungrier. I'm getting flustered and frustrated because I'm trying to make sure my husband feels comfortable. But at the same time, I can't stand to hear my baby cry. So after a few minutes of wrestling with this blanket, to hell with it, I fed my baby in public for the first time. I didn't care who was watching. I didn't care what they had to say. And nobody said anything. And nobody seemed to stare. And if they did, I didn't care. But I didn't care. I just knew that my baby was starving and it's my job to feed him. So I did just that. And after that, I made a personal vow to myself that I would never do that again. I would never cover up. Now, would I purposely try to expose myself? Absolutely not. But I will always do my best to make sure my baby is fed. And quite frankly, my firstborn hated having covers over his head. I only covered him up one other time, and that was at a funeral. And quite frankly, when I covered him up, people kept constantly opening the cover, trying to see the baby. Go figure. So after that, I never covered up anymore. I pretty much just made sure he was fed. So that's maybe something you want to talk about. See how comfortable your spouse is with it. Talk about the pros and cons. And then maybe see what solutions work for both of you. It's your baby. It's your body. It's your relationship. Whatever makes you happy. These are just my tips. Another thing you should do, and this is before the baby even gets here, by the way, is do some research on some pumps if you decide you're going to pump. What works for 6 million moms may not work for you. I've breastfed 2 babies now, and I used the Mandela pumping style and freestyle for my first child. I pumped 32 to 50 ounces on a daily basis because I had to go back to work. So I breastfed him exclusively when I was at home, but whenever I left, he had my milk to drink for anybody who may have been watching him, which namely was pretty much my husband. But with my second child, I pretty much exclusively breastfed. I bought the Spectra. I pumped once in a while, but I wasn't consistent with it. And I maybe pumped 3 to 10 ounces a week. So I didn't have a magic stash with my second born, and I did begin to doubt myself. Why is breastfeeding so hard this time? Is it me? Is it a different baby? All of these factors. Is it my pump? But because I was exclusively breastfeeding, he was gaining weight, he was happy and healthy. None of those things matter. So keep that in mind. Don't think that you're going to have some mega super freezer stash. Everybody's not an oversupplier, and everybody doesn't oversupply multiple times. Again, with my first child, I had a freezer full of milk. I literally had to send milk to multiple houses to store my milk. My second child, I'd be lucky if I had a corner in the freezer. But he was fed, and for 15 months with both of my kids, they were breastfed and they gained weight properly. Now, one last thing that you should really talk about and really discuss is going to be pressure. What kind of pressure? Pressure from family, friends, and healthcare workers to give your baby formula. If you decide that you want to breastfeed your baby, make that known to everybody who's supposed to support you. Your mother, your dad, your partner, yourself, and any doula or midwife or nurse that's going to be involved in your birth. Because I'm telling you, they are going to push formula on you from the time that child is born. With my first child, I gave birth to him and they tried to get him to latch. My milk hadn't came in. So I thought maybe it was something wrong. Well, I didn't do the research to learn my milk doesn't come in for 3 days. He would have latched and got that colostrum and been just fine. They only need about a teaspoon of colostrum. The baby's stomach is this big, but they give them a 2-ounce bottle that's this big. It doesn't correlate. So they pushed me and they said, hey, if your baby's blood sugar drops on our next check, we're going to have to put him in the NICU. I was scared. It was my first kid. My mom couldn't help me. She never breastfed. My mother-in-law couldn't help me. And my husband was just as scared as I. So, of course, yeah, give him formula. Well, studies show if you introduce formula in the first 5 days of birth and then switch back to breastfeeding, your baby's more likely to have milk allergies or food allergies, period. My son was allergic to eggs, tree nuts, peanuts, and dairy. He just now grew out of it and he's 3 years old. So I don't know if that made any big difference because I don't really have many food allergies running in my family and neither does my husband. But he got the luck of the draw and had all of those allergies. But I just did what I thought was best for my son at the time because I was uninformed. But had I been informed, had I had somebody to let me know it's okay, all he needs is colostrum, that's all he would have got. So for a couple of days when he first got home, I went back and forth between formula. Another thing is, make sure your hospital has a lactation consultant on staff. Some hospitals only have lactation consultants Monday through Friday during normal business hours. Babies come all hours of the night. Why that's the case, I'll never know. But that's how they operate. So make sure you have an appointment with the lactation consultant. Make sure they spend time with you. Not, hey, did you breastfeed? How did it go? But have them come in. Ma'am, can you show me some positions? Can you show me what to do? Can you check my baby for tongue tie? Right? Because I really struggled that first month breastfeeding my first child. Even though I had an awesome lactation consultant. I was in tears some nights because he wouldn't latch. And when he would latch, he would go right to sleep. I'll tell you about that in a second. But I just really struggled for that reason. So make sure you have a good lactation consultant. You spend some time, maybe before baby gets there, and the day of baby's arrival, or a couple days later. Whatever works for you. So now that we've done all of our research up until the day, now let's talk about baby is here. Again, remember, don't get pressured into giving formula. Go ahead and breastfeed that baby. And when in doubt, breastfeed that baby again. With my first son, he breastfed more on a schedule. In a sense, not by my schedule, but by his own. So every hour or so, he wanted to eat, which is perfectly normal. With a newborn who's on formula, they'll tell you every 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours. But with a newborn on breast milk, it could be every 5 minutes, every 15, every 20, every 30, every hour. You never know. Depends on your kiddo. And it's not to scare you. And it's not to say that they're not eating. Breast milk is different. Breastfeeding is different. Breast milk does hold your baby and it provides nutrients. However, babies don't just nurse because they're hungry. They nurse to feel close. They nurse to feel warmth. They nurse to feel protection. You have to remember your breast milk or your colostrum is similar to what they smelled inside of the womb or in the utero. So they want to be close to that. So they do everything they can to get to that, which often means cluster feeding. Dun, dun, dun. What is cluster feeding? Cluster feeding is where a baby is going through some type of growth spurt, and usually right after birth and a couple weeks after. And so they feed every hour, on the hour, and more. So when I said that they feed every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that's cluster feeding. Now with my first son, I didn't have too many episodes of that, mainly during scheduled growth spurts, if you will. So we knew it was going to happen right after he was born, around 4 weeks, then again at 8 weeks, and so on and so forth. With my second born, for the first week I fed that kid almost every 30 minutes. And I mean it. Again, not to scare you, but breastfeeding is a commitment. You have to commit to feeding your baby this way. And if you're not up to it, try it. And if it doesn't work, there's other ways to do it. You can also go to breast milk banks. Some people are a little uneasy about that and rather just do formula. But again, cow's milk versus human milk. Cow's milk is meant to turn a 60-pound calf into a 600-pound cow. So one thing I will say, if you do switch from breast milk to formula, again, not to scare you, it's your choice. But if you do switch from breast milk to formula, expect a huge growth for your child. So a lot of times those formula fed babies will be a lot larger for that reason, just because of all the hormones and steroids and things that are found in cow's milk, even in your formula. But anywho, so now that the day has come, your baby's here, you're constantly feeding your baby, and you have the support of your lactation consultant, your family members who are at the hospital, and your spouse, right? Now it's time to go home. You don't have that. You are sleep deprived. Baby is tired, your honey is tired, and it seems like now baby latched perfectly at the hospital but won't latch at all at home. It happens, and it happened to me twice. Okay, so with my first child, I had to really work with a lactation consultant. He did not latch easily at all. I had what you consider a flat nipple. Research it. And I had to use nipple shields. They're these little plastic pieces that go over your nipple, and they basically simulate a bottle so baby can get a deeper latch. And so I had to utilize those for him to get a good latch, and then eventually we were able to wean him off of the nipple shields. With my second baby, he latched pretty well at the hospital, and then he just seemed to not want to latch at all when we got home. And so no, I didn't feed him formula. I just really worked with him, or I would give it to him in a bottle until he had the energy to do that. You also want to make sure your partner is supportive. One of the ways that they can be supportive is by making sure you have a snack table. So one of the ways that you know that your baby has properly latched is if you're hungry, sleepy, or thirsty. And then of course, the first couple of weeks, you'll also feel pain in your uterus. Your stomach will contract if baby has properly latched. If you don't feel any of those things, baby probably isn't latched deep enough, and so you either need a lactation consultant to show you a deeper latch, or you need to make sure that you're getting baby to put the whole areola or as much of the areola in their mouth as possible. Once you get those things, have him have bottled water next to you, or a glass of water, a little healthy snacks, and I emphasize healthy. So some people will tell you that, oh, I breastfed and it just burned the weight off. For who? Because I breastfed 2 babies now. And for some women, yeah, it burns the weight right off. You burn about 500 calories a day breastfeeding. But for women like me, I tend to retain weight when I'm breastfeeding. It doesn't matter how healthy I eat, how hard I work out. When I'm breastfeeding, I can't shed more than 5 pounds. So breastfeeding for me, my body, for whatever reason, retains weight. And it's a lot of women we're finding that happens to. I thought I was a black sheep, but here it is. It's normal. You also don't need to worry about weight loss right away. It took you 9 months at least to put that weight on. So give yourself at least a year to get it off. Secondly, as far as those snacks go, you just want to eat healthy. What you eat, what you consume, your baby consumes. So if you're drinking Dr. Pepper and Pepsi and eating hot Cheetos, well, that's what your baby's having for lunch. So if they're fussy or gassy, it may be something you're eating. So having healthy snacks such as grapes, water, crackers, tuna, something light like that has some health benefits to it, is better for you. And your partner can always set up a tray. The other thing is making sure you eat right. We all hear about it, eat right your pregnancy, but we love to give into our cravings. Try not to do it, especially when you're breastfeeding. Try to eat healthy options. And if you find that you're getting clogged ducts or that your milk is slowing down, reduce your dairy. If the baby's gassy or fussy, reduce your dairy. Dairy tends to inadvertently affect our breastfed babies. So that's one of the easiest ways to cut it out. You don't have to get prescription meds. You don't necessarily need gas drops. But taking dairy out and sometimes eggs can really help a baby. They just really can't tolerate cow's milk that well. As time goes on, after that first month, it gets easier and easier. So some women make a goal. Make a goal for yourself. I want to breastfeed for at least 6 weeks. When you get to that 6-week mark, reevaluate. Do you want to go for 6 more weeks? A month? 2-3 months? A year? Make that decision. So if you can't see yourself doing it for a year, make small goals like that. I think in my head, I originally said I wanted to go to at least a year with my first child. And then I turned around and at 1, I said, okay, 18 months. And by 15 months, he pretty much decided he was done breastfeeding. And the same thing essentially has happened for my second child. I wanted to go to 18 months, but it just didn't happen. Another quick tip that I have for you is those first couple of days where you have that liquid gold, where your milk is yellow because it's full of colostrum as that milk is coming in. Save some and freeze it. If you have little needle-less syringes, fill them up and save them for when baby might be sick or have a cold or not feeling well. You can always defrost it and give it to them instead of medicine. Yes, there are natural medicines, but this is supernatural because that one is full of stem cells and antibiotics. Or antibodies. I'm sorry. Antibiotics are man-made. So they're full of those things, and it's great for baby. And I've used them to clear up skin allergy reactions, colds, sniffles, anything. You can shoot it up the nose, put it in the mouth, wipe it on the skin, whatever you may need. And I actually to this day still have some colostrum milk saved in my freezer. So if you want a stash of anything, that's the stash you want. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hopefully this video helped you with any questions that you may have. And if I need to make a follow-up video, let me know. Hopefully this helped. Guys, have a good night. Thank you.